So Paul and Dan, as you know, we see what's happening with Wisconsin. Arguably the two biggest names in college football, Nick Saban and Trevor Lawrence, have gotten COVID. When is enough, or will it ever be enough to cancel the season at this point? Paul, we'll start with you.
We're not stopping the season. Are you joking? Like, we're already going. We're full tilt. This train is rolling downhill. There's no stopping. It's going to keep going until we have a national championship. Trevor Lawrence, Nick Saban, the president had COVID. We're not stopping college football. It's certainly completing. So the question is how many cancellations we'll have along the way. Probably more, obviously more. But no, this is not stopping. Clemson will continue, and so will college football.
This question is for you both. What have you learned about college football this year in terms of its handling of the pandemic and still playing anyways?
I think they've done the best that they could in this situation, and they meaning each of these individual conferences. You decided to play in the pandemic, so you accepted the risks. My sympathy lies more with the players who had to sacrifice their normal college experience. Not so much with the coaches who are still making a couple $1 million, but the student athletes who had to, bunker down. They're not living in a bubble, but they're certainly not experiencing the normal college experience. So my sympathy lies with them. But just overall, generally speaking, you reap what you sow. You try to play football amid COVID and amid a pandemic. It's what has happened has been entirely expected.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Dan, do you think if Clemson loses, is there any argument to keep them out of the college football playoffs?
Well, the biggest thing that the committee is going to have to deal with this year is evaluating teams who have key players out due to COVID. And you have to evaluate Clemson. The Clemson team that's going to be on the field Saturday is not going to have Trevor Lawrence. Now, certainly DJ Uiagalelei is a great player in his own right. He's a freshman who did a terrific job in his first start, but he's not their starting quarterback. And, if Clemson were to lose, I think the committee gives them at least some slack because you would have to evaluate them without their starting quarterback. And that's going to be true of every team who loses a key player because of COVID this year.
What do you think will be the biggest factor in picking the Final Four? You mentioned you don't know how they're going to, but is it really going to come down to just an eye test?
Well, it's always an eye test to some degree, and I know that we like to talk about the data and the strength of schedule and analytics and different metrics. There is an eye test. And that's why in Alabama always gets more benefit of the doubt. Now they didn't get in last year, but they have gotten in without winning their conference. Why? Because it's Alabama. Everyone knows how good they are. And they do get more slack, and maybe they deserve it. I'm not saying one way or the other. I usually prefer to pick a playoff in terms of what you've accomplished on the field, and you look at the good wins and you look at the losses and you make a judgment that way. But at the end of the day, Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, those three teams can afford more of a stumble than anyone else in the country.
And who currently has the inside track to win the Heisman? I want to know both of your opinions, but Dan, we'll start with you.
Well, I would say right now it's probably Justin Fields. Trevor Lawrence, I think, was considered the favorite coming into the year. He's going to miss a couple games. Not saying that that's good or right or fair or whatever, but it is true. It's not his fault that he got COVID. But if you treat it like an injury from a Heisman standpoint, it's less data to put into the formula in people's minds. And Justin Fields, he may miss games in the future, but as of right now, and especially the way he's come out of the gates, I think he's a slight favorite. I think you probably should start putting Mac Jones on your radar from Alabama with what he's done. So I don't know. I think Lawrence will have opportunities when he comes back to make up that ground, but I think it's Fields right now.
I'm glad you mentioned Mac Jones. Paul, I want to know, have you seen Mac Jones play?
Never seen him in person. we know all about him as a player, as a recruit. He was the other quarterback in the Alabama class where they signed Tua Tagovailoa. So he's kind of been underrated, overlooked throughout his college experience. I think Dan's right, totally, that Mac Jones is a player in the Heisman race. I think the issue he has is there's a perception that he's kind of a system QB, while Justin Fields is reinventing what an Ohio State quarterback is. And right or wrong, I think for a lot of voters, that's part of the issue with Mac Jones winning the Heisman, but he's been better than expected, no doubt, certainly taking advantage of an enormous amount of skill talent around him. If he stays throughout the end of his college career, I think he'll end up with a bunch of records at Alabama.
Hey sports fans, if you want to see more videos like this, check out some of our other ones right here. And if you like what you see, make sure to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more from USA Today Sports.